now time for the Billy C. Show, part of the BillyCBoxing.com network.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C. Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for the Billy C. Show. Good morning, good day, good evening, whenever you're watching, whenever you're listening. I hope you're doing okay today. Today's show is being brought to us in part by Sal's Neighborhood Pizzeria and Italian Restaurant located on St. Simon's Island in Georgia. Check out the website, www.salsneighborhoodpizzeria.com, or give my man a call, 912-268-2328, 912-268-2328. Find out why I go all the way to St. Simon's for an authentic Italian meal. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by the Title Bout Championship computer game. If you like simulation games, this is the game for you. Just visit our website, www.BillyCBoxing.com, and click on the Title Bout banner. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by our 24-hour, 7-day-a-week boxing channel. That's right, you can catch our channel on all the major streaming devices like Roku. Just visit GinicoUSA.com and sign up today for free. We got a lot of cool stuff up there on the channel. We're in our 16th year doing this show, and not only do you get to see some replays of this show, all of the specials we've done over the past 16 years, Billy C. get-togethers, live broadcasts, different fights we've covered, post and pre-fight shows, all that stuff up on the Billy C. Boxing channel. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by Kenny Bears, all of his spices. Get yourself a bottle today. Visit southerngourmetspice.com, southerngourmetspice.com. And finally, today's show, She's a Beer and brought to us in a part by my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Men on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold. Get yourself a copy right now where you're watching or listening to this very show. Find out why I'm so adamant about getting Tom Molyneux's story told. Whoa, wait. You looking for a signed copy? Drop me an email, billy@talkinboxing, TALKINBOXING.com, or just visit the website, BillyCBoxing.com. All right, got a lot of stuff to talk about today. We got some thoughts today. It's Super Bowl weekend, man. And here in the United States, and I know we have a large following, so to speak, viewer festivities, if you will, early today, and go all the way on, and a lot of people even take tomorrow off from work because of all the fun they're going to have on Super Bowl weekend. And for the most part, it's not only just football fans, it's everybody, you know. I talk to everybody, anybody, and they'll be like, oh, yeah, what are you doing Super Bowl? You know, and they never watch any sports except for Super Bowl. With that said, I think boxing really missed an opportunity. I mean, if I'm a promoter and I want to try to capture sports frenzied fans, just can't waiting, chomping at the bit for an event that actually is today, I would have tried to stage a big fight. You know, the Fury Wilder 2 fight would have been great last night. How about the Anthony Joshua Kubrat Pulev fight last night? Would have been great. A fight with Lomachenko or Triple G or Daniel Jacobs. You know, instead we got and no disrespect to this fighter, but Yordenis Ugas against Mike Dallas Jr. as the fight, even the one that was supposed to take place with Victor Postal, you know, it wasn't a killer fight. It just, to me, it was a wasted opportunity. You know, we did get to see some young fighters, which was interesting. I mean, I thought that might have been a smart move by the PBC The problem is that the matchups weren't all that great. There were 2 fights on the undercard last night. Well, first and foremost, Yordenis Ugas improved to 25-4 when he scored a 7th-round stoppage. He dominated Mike Dallas Jr., who drops to 23-3 with a couple of draws and 11 knockouts in Biloxi, Mississippi. Dallas's corner threw in the towel after the 7th round. This was definitely a mismatch. Mike Dallas Jr., no disrespect to him, but no chance against Ugas. The one thing I think is missing with Ugas is a little pop. If this guy had punching power, he would be a tough out. I mean, he is that guy, that below the top level welterweight. He's that next guy, and he's kind of an unknown commodity still, I think. And if he's given the opportunity, we'll see how he comes through. One thing I gotta say, I know I've been critical of the PBC, and I'm just going to continue. I mean, is that part of the contract, like when you sign with Al Heyman, that you get to do a broadcast? I mean, Keith Thurman was there doing the broadcast, along with one of the and not the Charlo twins, I can't even think of their name right now because they're so great. But the truth of the matter is that, not that boxing needs a superstar commentators, but they need commentators with some kind of continuity among themselves. And, I just believe that by throwing in the guy that you're supposed to throw in this case, Thurman, and he's actually well-spoken and stuff like that. It's just that there was no continuity, and it seemed kind of off all night to me. But anyway, in the co-main event, Michel Rivera improved to 18-0 with 12 knockouts when he scored a 10th-round stoppage over Fidel Maldonado Jr., who drops to 27-5. The official time was 1 minute and 40 seconds. This was a weird fight. It was a one-sided fight, in my opinion. Rivera dominating. Maldonado acting like he had something up his sleeve. When a fighter's smiling that much, they're either cuckoo or they're getting their butts beat, and I think that was happening. In another fight that was on the card, young, undefeated Raymond Guadalajara, Gallardo, was supposed to have a showcase fight against Clay Collard. And Collard was a fighter, MMA, and he went into the fight 5-2 with 3 draws. Obviously, the matchmaking was wrong. Raymond lost the fight, got knocked out at 1 minute and 42 seconds of the second round. But here's where I get bothered by it. It was an exciting fight. And they're all talking, fight of the year, early fight of the year candidate, fight of the year, fight of the year, fight of the year. Well, it was a brutal fight, yes. It was action-packed, yeah. It didn't last 2 full rounds, but neither fighter displayed any kind of skill. None. Zero. Zilch. Goose egg, baby. And it's like, how could that be a fight of the year? A fight of the year, to me, is an action-packed fight, but I want to see 2 fighters that have some skill and are throwing bombs at each other and showing me some skill, not just a high school hallway fight, because that's what it looked like to me. And speaking of high school, who the hell is advising little Raymond, who's a teenager? I think he was only 18 or 19. He quit school to pursue his professional boxing career. I thought generally I thought that, kids today or people that were going to get into boxing, we're being advised at least a little smarter. I complain a lot about Floyd Mayweather and his path, seeking the least challenges and hard path, cherry picking opponents and stuff. But maybe learn something from a guy like him, where he uses his brain. I mean, sports, especially boxing, is short-lived. Whoever would talk this kid into quitting school to become a pro fighter? Now he loses for the first time. He's 5-1. I mean, that's not, his career's not over by any stretch of the imagination. But fighting the way he did, and not really. I mean, after that first round, the kid goes back to the corner. He's the favorite. He's supposed to win. As a trainer, I would have thought they would have said, listen, kid, you got the height advantage over him. This guy isn't too much, doesn't, possess too much of a skill set. Box him, outbox him, move around, circle around. No, he goes right back and picks up where he left off in the first round. I mean, that's terrible training. And that's a kid that just doesn't have the experience. And somebody advises him to quit school? Big mistake. I'm not sure we're going to see much of him, in the future. Also on that card, I will mention this. The cruiserweight fight was entertaining. Dion Nicholson improved to 13-0 with 12 knockouts when he won a unanimous decision over Earl Newman, who drops his third fight. He's 10 wins, 3 losses, and a draw right now with 7 knockouts. 97-93 and 96-94 twice. I liked what I saw in Nicholson. He reminded me, I know people are going to make fun of what I'm going to say, but he kind of reminded me of a Mike Tyson. Not as vicious, but maybe he should become vicious. He was fighting a much bigger guy in Newman, and Earl Newman is a big fighter. He seemingly is improving. Granite chin, and had some pop. I think it was a great fight for Nicholson. These are the kinds of tests you want to give to a guy after he's got 10, 12 fights under his belt, just like they did. He didn't get the knockout that he wanted, but he went the distance, and I'm sure he learned a lot. Keep an eye on Dion Nicholson. I love the cruiserweight division, and I think he's going to be a player, although he seems small. But let's see. He's young. Some fights on Thursday night. Demetrius Andrade knocked out Luke Keeler in the ninth round. Dropped him a couple of times early. As a matter of fact, in the first, I think, 10 seconds of the fight, he was down. Again, I'm going to make a reference to Floyd Mayweather. Demetrius Andrade, Floyd Mayweather was a fighter. Everybody knows I wasn't a big fan of his. But here's the thing, and I've been critical of Floyd throughout his whole career about how he runs and how he cherry-picked and all these things. But here's the difference. Floyd Mayweather possessed skills, and he would show them during a fight. My hang-up with Floyd was that he didn't show us enough. He did enough to win. He didn't have any exciting fights. But during his fights, there may have been some points where the excitement level rose a bit. I was always, and most fans were always craving for more from Floyd, and he never delivered. And I think that that's been my hang-up. Demetrius Andrade is a boring fighter, and he doesn't do what Floyd did. He doesn't give you excitement. He showed that he didn't even possess that much skill against, and no disrespect, Luke Keeler. Yeah, he dropped him, but so what? Keeler was there as a sacrificial lamb in a punching bag. They wanted Demetrius Andrade to get the knockout win, which he did. He showed no skill. He's a boring fighter. And to suggest that he's going to be a potential matchup for any of the other top middleweights or super middleweights is ridiculous. He wouldn't stand a chance with Triple G. Daniel Jacobs destroys him. Canelo destroys him. You want to go to Billy Joe Saunders? I think Billy Joe Saunders beats him too. David Lemieux would be an interesting fight against Demetrius Andrade. But a big money fight for Andrade, I don't know. Ryota Murata, the champ from Japan, I wouldn't mind seeing that fight. They were actually talking about that fight for Canelo, which I was shocked to even hear that Canelo would need a bigger name than him. But I don't know, man. You know, Demetrius Andrade, no disrespect, he's a boring fighter, and he's not going to change. It is what it is. But nonetheless, he improved to 29-0. What does it take him? I don't know. I'm not looking forward to seeing him fight again. Like I said, you know, at least Floyd gave us glimpses of greatness during his fights. I know people talk about his defensive skill, but he displayed hand speed and punching accuracy sometimes during his fights, just enough to make him pound his chest and say he's the best ever. Demetrius Andrade can't say it. Can't say it. I'm sorry, can't do it. And I thought he did possess talent. He didn't show it against Luke Keeler, and he's certainly not going to show it against a better fighter. And when you looked at his pedigree, he really hasn't fought anybody. So I'm not impressed with Demetrius Andrade. Now, who I'm impressed with is Jojo Diaz. Jojo Diaz, now, you guys heard it here first last week. I predicted the upset. I said it. Everybody told me after the show I was nuts. What are you, crazy? Tevin Farmer is such a boxer. He's such a skilled guy. You know, blah, blah, blah. You know, when I dissected the fight here on this show, I also brought up the level of opposition that both fighters had. And Jojo Diaz fought the tougher competition. Make no mistake, he did. Does he have more skill than Tevin Farmer? No. But he attacked Farmer. Something was off with Farmer, you know, obviously. But Diaz won that fight. How they let the fight, that was one of the most grotesque cuts I've ever seen. But congratulations to Jojo Diaz. He won a unanimous decision, 116-112 and 115-113 twice. He's now a champion, third time's a charm. He's 31 wins, 1 loss with 15 knockouts. His only loss coming to Gary Russell Jr. Tevin Farmer loses for the 5th time in his career, 30 wins, 5 losses, and a draw with only 6 knockouts. Also, that night we had another dethroning, if you will. Daniel Roman lost his titles to Murodon Akademilov, who improves to 8-0 with 6 knockouts. It was a split decision. 115-115 twice for Akademilov, and one judge saw it in Danny Roman's favor, 115-113. Look for both of these rematches with these two fighters. And on Friday night, there was a cruiserweight fight. I like to keep my eyes on the cruiserweights. The WBC cruiserweight title, vacant WBC cruiserweight title, was on the line. Junior Alunga Makabu improved to 27-2 with 24 knockouts when he scored a 12-round decision, unanimous decision, over Michael Sislak, who drops his first fight, 19-1. 114-112, 115-111, 116-111 were the way the 3 judges scored that fight. You know, I've always liked the cruiserweights. That's why I'm you know, looking forward to keeping my eye on the cruiserweight Nicholson that I spoke about earlier. But you know, it's a division that I believe should get more recognition, at least here in the States. Big guys, usually hand speed. And punching power. To me, they represent the old style heavyweight, the old size of the heavyweight, I should say. And a heavyweight, in my mind, because he's a monster of human beings, and I don't mean physically sized, just being a great guy. Sal Rocky Senecola joins us. Good morning, Sal.
Good morning, Billy C. How are you?
I'm doing well, my man. I'm doing well. How you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing very well myself, pal. Thank you for asking.
Couple fights last night. Did you get a chance to see the Ugas fight against Mike Dallas Jr.?
Yes, I did. And let me tell you, Ugas is a good, dominant fighter. I like him. And, yeah, he looked like he just was having fun out there, and he was very dominant throughout the fight. And when I first saw his stoppage, I was like, "Wow, what's going on?" And but hey, why not? It was good. Hey, I want to ask: was Bill Clancy? Is he related to Gil Clancy?
No, he's not. But Bill is a guy that I met early on when I started getting into boxing. He was trying to. He actually helped me promote some fights in the Carolinas. And he's a great guy. He's been in the business a long time. And how about him yelling at the corner? It reminded me It reminded me when my kids were little. I coached little league level, and I remember a referee throwing all the parents out of the game because they were heckling and being tough on the kids and him. And the guy stopped action and made all the parents get their folding chairs and leave the field, which reminded me last night when Bill Clancy turned around and started yelling at the corner. He's like, what? He said something like, "Do you want a ref?" or something like that, or "Let me ref," or something like that. But did you watch the whole card, Sal, last night?
I did, and I thought it was too many fights, and they kept saying co-features, double co-feature. It was crazy.
Well, you know what I did enjoy that they showed the whole card personally, because there was really nothing else on. But did you catch the fight with in the junior middleweight division? Clay Collard took on the young undefeated Raymond Guajardo. Which they're saying was a fight of the year. It was a bombs away fight. Only lasted less than 2 rounds. You recall the fight?
Oh yeah, I do. And yeah, he was very dominant. But how the heck do you call a few rounds a fight of the year by B style fighting? It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe all the slips last night. Now, when I first started boxing and I won the Golden Gloves, we had leather bottom shoes. The trainers would have to score the bottom of us for getting traction. But then they came out with rubber soled shoes, and the grip was great. You could just leverage yourself and push off your rear leg and drill home a great punch. But last night, I couldn't believe all the slips, all the knockdowns that were ruled, and I'm not big on that. If you're off your feet and it was due to a punch, you're knocked down.
Yes. That one where Ugas dropped Dallas and Clancy called it a slip, his back foot kicked out. But it was because he was trying to gain traction after he got. I mean, it was a solid punch. They're going, he didn't hit him. The one announcer's going, I don't know if it was Thurman or it was Durrell, Anthony Durrell. I couldn't think of his name earlier. I don't know which one it was that said it, but he says, he missed him. And I'm saying, what? Not on my TV he missed him. I mean, it landed. That should have been a knockdown 100%. And I think what's happened today, and the reason why they're slipping so much, is all the decals on the canvas. Good
point.
They have that. But let's get back to that junior middleweight fight. Could you believe? Now, you're a father. You got 2 sons. Great kids, and this kid Raymond Guajardo, and I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong, and I apologize. Was advised, or at least quit high school, to become a pro. And I say to myself, how could anyone advise a kid, especially in today's world, and especially in a sport like boxing, to quit school to pursue a professional career? And he lost for the first time last night. What's your thoughts on that as a father?
I thought it was pathetic. I mean, my father, education was everything. My father was a genius when it came to small business and running them. And I learned from him like a master. And no, education's everything. I mean, if you don't, and he always just say, Sal, you could turn pro and I'll support you and make sure you're taken care of. But you you got to remember, education is everything. What are you going to do after fighting? What are you going to do this? I went to college, then I went to beautician school, learn how to become a hairdresser. Yes, I said that, ladies and gentlemen. I was, and I still am considered a hairdresser. I used to do the highlighting. I used to do the perms. I used to do haircuts. I used to do everything. And I had my own salon. That's my father's idea. He was a marketing genius. We called my first salon the Uppercut, where all hairstyles were a knockout. And that's the truth.
As long as you can't give your pizzas a haircut, I'm okay, man. I don't want any hair in my pizza,
Forget about it. No, it won't ever happen.
Thursday night, there was some fights on. I don't know if you got a chance to watch them. Demetrius Andrade fought. Did you? Okay, all right. But Jojo Diaz won, which I was excited about. I'm a fan of Jojo Diaz.
I like Jojo.
Yeah, he won, and you should have seen the cut on his eye that he sustained in the very first round. He went the distance with it. It was grotesque. But my thought of the day here, Sal, is Super Bowl weekend, and I'm sure you own a restaurant. I know that you got something going on. I'm sure you would for today for the Super Bowl, and there's a lot of people like to come in and go out or go to parties or whatever for Super Bowl. I mean, it's become almost a holiday here in the States.
Yes.
I'm shocked that boxing didn't take advantage. And I know somebody's gonna say, what do you mean? Ugas fought. Yeah. I don't mean Ugas. I mean like maybe the rematch with Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, or Anthony Joshua fighting Pulev, or a Lomachenko fight, or a Triple G fight, or a Danny Jacobs fight, or a Canelo fight. A big name should have been fighting last night, in my opinion, because I think that Super Bowl weekend is the biggest sports weekend here in the United States, by far the biggest sports weekend. People start getting jacked up early on. They're talking about the Super Bowl all week. I think boxing failed. They should have grabbed that opportunity to expand its viewer base. What are your thoughts on that?
I think you're absolutely right, Billy C. These guys don't learn. It is a big sports weekend, so showcase it with a big super fight. And they just fell well short of that. Maybe they'll take a cue and produce it next year. But I think they should, because that would help with the exclamation mark. And that's it. I'll tell you, they let us down on that level.
Well, I think that the argument would be, too many people are going to be focused on the Super Bowl. They're not going to watch a boxing event. But I mean that could be the counterpoint here. But I disagree. I think that I know for myself. I'm a sports fan. I mean, of course, boxing is my sport, but I like other sports, and I think when you have that feeling of it's a sports weekend, why not put a big fight on? I mean, no disrespect to Ugas and Mike Dallas Jr., but that wasn't the fight that should have been Super Bowl Eve.
No, I agree with you, Bill. You're 100% right. These guys, they should listen to your lead a little bit.
Hey, Sal, speaking of Super Bowl, I've been asked all week about my thoughts on the big game and everything else, and I know you're going to watch it. What's your thoughts on the Super Bowl? Do you have any picks for the game, or give us your Super Bowl predictions and thoughts?
I do like football, but only when the New York Giants are in it, and even the Jets. But
Yeah, we know why. We know why all of a sudden you're starting to like the Jets. It's because of my man Pat Ryan stops into your restaurant and you don't want him to feel slighted. Come on, don't be BSing me, man. You know, I mean, you were Giants, you a Giants fan through and through. Now that he comes in the restaurant, you threw up a Jets shirt. Come on.
Oh yeah, I mean he's a good man. I'll tell you that, he really is. And he comes by every year with his family, beautiful family. And I'll tell you, we enjoy having talks about the Jets.
Well, yeah. Just don't egg them on to talk negatively about my boys. But do you have a prediction today? Who's going to win
Today?
Yeah, the game, the Super Bowl, 49ers or the Chiefs. Who are you rooting for?
You know, I love the 49ers only because I love Joe Montana. And, you know, he did an incredible job. So I like the 49ers. But, you know, Kansas City Chiefs are strong. They're just dominant. And it's going to be hard to shut them down. Their offense down, but we'll see. I can live with a 49er victory. I can also live with a Chiefs victory, and that's why I'm enjoying the two top teams duke it out tonight. And I look forward to a couple commercials, and I'm going to score those too on a 10-point must system.
You know, the thing is I've always been a 49. I'm a Jets fan, but my second team has always been the Niners, and I'm going back to the before Joe Montana. John Brody was a quarterback for them for a while, and loved the Niners back in the day. But in any event, well, Sal, I hope you have a great time watching the game and doing whatever you guys are going to be doing at the restaurant. And we look forward to next week, brother.
Me too, my friend. I'll talk to you definitely during the week, and I'm going to go get something in the mail for you tomorrow.
Hey, that sounds good, but I will definitely talk to you this week about next week and the week after, all right?
All right, Billy C. Have a great day, guys. Everybody out there in Billy C. boxing land. And I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for having me on today.
All right, brother. Have a good one. That's my main man, Sal Rocky Senecola. And nobody's better than Sal. And listen, if you haven't been to his place, you got to stop by, man, because, you know, I always open the show saying that I go all the way to St. Simon's for an authentic Italian meal. I'm not kidding you. I tell you the truth, not to start talking. It is Super Bowl Sunday, so I'll start talking about food. Every dish I've ever had, I mean, make no mistake, I go in there for pizza, but every dish I've ever had in there has been phenomenal. But the side, when he gives me the choice of having the sautéed spinach, oh my God, it's, I can't tell you how much. I'm disappointed that they did not take advantage of putting on a bigger fight. In my opinion, for the Super Bowl weekend, but that's just little old me. Anthony Joshua, Kubot Pulev, they got a extension according to Eddie Hearn. We will have a decision on when and where the fight will be taking place. They have until the 14th of February. A good old Valentine's Day, so we'll be looking forward to that. Would have been nice to have that fight on Super Bowl weekend, but hey, who am I? Who am I? I'm not one of the guys to come up with the great ideas and the fights. Although speaking of Matchroom, he wants to put Antonio Brown against the YouTube star, which I don't even watch. But joining us right now, my man Dax Khan. Good morning, Dax.
Good morning, Billy C.
What'd you think of the fights last night, my man?
I don't want to. Oh, last night. All right. I thought you were trying to talk about that. Those YouTubers from.
No, I don't even discuss. They are not in my discussion. I give them all credit for the fan base that actually wants to watch them, And they both made pro debut. No, let's not even talk about it. Let's talk about the Ugas Dallas fight first.
I don't know. Were you following me on social media last night? Because I'm listening to the show, and I swear you go to my Facebook page, you repeated pretty much a lot of what I said. When it comes to Ugas, he's a guy who has all the skills, but for whatever reason, whether or not it's that Cuban style mentality or it's just hard to explain. Or I also mentioned about the pop. Maybe he's lacking that pop on his punch that keeps him from being up there with the absolute elite. But he's not an exciting fighter. He's an effective fighter. And last night, him breaking down Mike Dallas. Dallas Jr. is no surprise. Just what does that do for his career? I don't know. But, Ugas, with all these titles out there, you'd think he'd be able to grab himself a belt. But he's going to have to get a fight against maybe somebody like Danny Garcia in order to, remain relevant and to win over a guy like Danny Garcia, to remain relevant as a name that people are going to watch. Considering both his losses, they were close. But, he's only faced, guys in, the lower 25 level other than Sean Porter. And over the last couple of years,
I would like to see a fight with him and Danny Garcia. He was talking about a rematch with Porter, but he said he would put it on hold. I mean, any one of those guys, he does need a big name on his resume with a W next to it. How about Adrian Broner or Lipiditz or even Amir Khan? I know Amir Khan is over the hill, but he needs to get one of those wins. I mean, he's saying he wants a world title shot. Well, Manny Pacquiao is a title holder. To me, that's a safe fight for Manny if he wants to continue. I think he beats Ugas. Errol Spence, I'll give an update on him. He's not fighting anytime soon. And Terrence Crawford's got bigger fish to fry. I think his options are limited, Dax.
Oh, yeah, they are limited. Absolutely, I agree. A fight against Porter, a rematch against that, I don't know. I actually believe that Porter would do better in the rematch. But Ugas against Manny Pacquiao, even this version of Manny Pacquiao, Ugas doesn't throw enough punches, and that's his problem. He just doesn't let his hands go enough. But in terms of his overall boxing ability, it's fantastic. Name Adrian Broner. It's come to the point now where Adrian Broner is expected to be beaten. So a loss to Adrian Broner or even a poor performance against Adrian Broner would be more harmful than beneficial. So I would avoid that fight. But let's see. He did have the win over Omar Figueroa Jr. And he has to get himself one of those names up there that fans can recognize, and he has to win decisively. Even if he did fight Broner, he'd have to dominate Broner.
Thursday night, I did all I could to stay awake and watch Demetrius Andrade. I made a reference to Floyd earlier, and Floyd. Everybody knows I'm not a big fan or whatever, but Floyd over the course of a fight would at least show us glimpses of his brilliance. Everybody tells me how great of a defensive fighter is. My comment is always, well, he runs. He's at the other end of the ring. He's not inflicting damage on his opponent. He's avoiding punches, but he's not in position to throw a punch. But at least when he exchanged for the few times during the fight that he did, he displayed punching accuracy. He displayed hand speed. He displayed head movement. He showed us that he's a great fighter. Demetrius Andrade doesn't. He was a boring fighter. He looked amateurish, trying to take out Keeler. Obviously, he wanted a big win, and he looked. It's like I could care less if I ever see him again. What was your thoughts on that fight?
Well, I mean, Andrade. And again, you mentioned before something that we've actually spoke about, quite a few times, where there were such high hopes for him. And, he had the promotional problems and so on. Then he gets with Eddie Hearn, which was, the best in cap to his career. He dominated, some really good names early on. Then all of a sudden, he became complacent enough to do just enough to win. Now, when, just like we were speaking about with Ugas, if you want those big fights and you want to remain relevant, just winning isn't enough. You have to win in a fashion that the fans are going to appreciate, and they're going to want to see you in there against those big names. So no matter how many names you get, when you're having performances like the ones that Andrade has been giving out the last 10, 15 fights, against levels of guys like Luke Keeler. No offense to Luke Keeler, he's a tough kid, but just going out there to get the win isn't making you marketable, and just going out there calling out names isn't going to make you any more marketable. He wants that Canelo fight, but Canelo's going to face off against Ryota Murata next. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, that's all signed, sealed, and delivered.
No, it's not. It's not. If I just got an update on that. It fell through. They're not moving forward with that. That fight's off the table, and they're focusing on a May 2nd fight between Canelo against either Billy Joe Saunders or Callum Smith. That was the latest.
Yeah, I was out of town for it was Thursday last I heard that they had that was all ready to go and just to be announced officially. But back to Andrade. No matter what, he's not going to get that, Canelo fight, even now that, the Murata fight fell through. He needs a tough fight. Maybe a guy against Sergey Derevchenko, he has all the goods. He lacks a few things that Andrade does have, and he would force Demetrius Andrade to fight a style that the fans want to see. That afterwards the fans will say that they'd love to see him in there against one of those more marketable names. How about maybe even a fight against a Chris Eubank Jr. or a Jaime Munguia, who is a strong fighter, but he's very beatable and can be outboxed. And Demetrius Andrade, he wouldn't really have to step up that much in terms of his volume, his output, change his style all that much, just be a little bit slightly more effective. And a guy like Munguia can actually make the fight look more exciting than what it is, if that makes sense. But either one of those opponents, a win over them, that would do wonders for Demetrius Andrade, and would have fans actually saying, there's the guy that we knew was there's the fighter that we knew had the potential to be one of the top names. Now let's see how he does against one of the top names. Right now, people are saying, just as you said a few minutes ago, I can care less if I ever see him fight again.
The thing is the names he's calling out, Canelo and Triple G, there's no way he stands a chance. But I agree with you 100%. Chris Eubank Jr., Munguia, a great fight against Munguia. Jamal Charlo would be a fight I would love to see. Derevchenko, I think, might be too tough for him, believe it or not. But even Murata, I think Murata would be a good fight in Japan for him. So there are some fights for him, and he would need to perform much more exciting, or like you say, fight a guy that will make it exciting, like a Munguia or a Charlo, even Charlo. Listen, I don't think too highly of the Charlo brothers, but he'll try to make it a fight, and maybe that's what Andre needs. But Jojo Diaz, I predicted he would beat Farmer. Everybody thought I was crazy. I loved the fight, but how about that cut? I was having a hard time looking between rounds. I mean, they were focusing on that cut. I'm shocked that they kept it under control for the whole fight.
Yeah, they did. They did a great job on that cut, and good for Diaz because, that happened early, and you're right. That was in a terrible spot, right on not like just above the eyelid, but it was across the eyelid, and, it was like, protruding out there. It was a nasty-looking cut. But, lately we've seen some pretty horrible cuts where they've let go. The Badu Jack cut in his fight against Marcus Brown was terrible. How that remained going, and that cut wasn't under control. So, things worked out in Diaz's favor. Third time was the charm for him. Well, I don't know what was going on with Tevin Farmer. I'm not trying to take anything away from Diaz's performance. He stayed composed, he fought smart, and now he's a world champion. The rematch, we'll see then, maybe if it was an off night for Tevin Farmer or, Diaz just, went in there and lived up to his potential. I have to see then. The old saying, Bill, you're not really a world champion until you defend that title, especially when it comes to a rematch against the former champion. I do know that Tevin Farmer was brought for CT scans and not after the fight. So they must have been concerned about something. I believe both those scans came back okay. So, Who knows? Maybe this is it's the right weight for him. It was the right moment for him, and this is the second chapter of Jojo Diaz's career. Remember, that was his last opportunity at a title. He actually, I believe, he won that fight, but because he was overweight, he couldn't win the belt.
Right. That was throwing me off when we were talking about that last week.
Oh yes, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, because he had lost to Gary Russell Jr., but then he didn't hit weight, and that's why he couldn't win the title. That's why it was his third attempt. Because I'm saying to myself, how could it be his third attempt? He's only got the one loss. But I forgot about the weight issue. But as far as his fight with Tevin Farmer, Jojo Diaz has always been an action-packed fighter. He comes forward, he lets his hands go, he works the body beautifully. The one thing that I think that Jojo needs to improve on, Dax, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts, is his punching accuracy. I think that listen. I mean, Tevin Farmer is a great boxer. He's hard to hit and everything else, so maybe that had something to do with it. But what I noticed a lot in the fight was that Jojo Diaz was just a little off. And Tevin Farmer wasn't avoiding punches as great as he usually does. So I don't know. I think if you go back to the drawing board with Jojo, you got to work on his punching accuracy and maybe a little more head movement. What's your thoughts?
If he's going to remain, with so many titles out there, Bill, since I mentioned, being a champion before, it's one thing, to be a title holder or be considered, one of the champions. And this is a pretty packed division. And in order for Jojo Diaz to be considered up at that top, he's going to have to face at least the opponent level of the other champions in that division. And there's some really good guys in that division. Even, you got Leo Santa Cruz, Miguel Burchout, you got Rakhimov, so Jojo Diaz, he's definitely going to have to, not only is he going to have to increase that accuracy, he's going to really have to increase the output of his punches, because this is, a division full of veteran fighters that they all go out there, they all fight hard, they all have that knockout mentality, and they're all at the, that very top of the food chain. So Jojo Diaz, he's got himself a title. He's 31-1 right now. He's living high off this Tevin Farmer fight. So let's see what he does next. But he does have some work inside of him if he wants to remain among the elite.
Well, they did mention multiple times during the broadcast that Farmer did have a rematch clause, and they're just now that it's a question of when he wants to exercise that. But jumping back to the fights last night. The young fight with Clay Collard and I'm probably pronouncing Raymond his last name incorrectly, but Guajardo or Jardo. This kid was highly touted. Comes in the fight undefeated. They seemingly picked a tough looking guy that they were going to run over. And we saw bombs away for less than 2 rounds and Raymond loses the fight. 2 things I wanted to comment on. Number one is they're talking about it being potential fight of the year. I don't know. I mean, does action-packed and trying to kill each other justify fight of the year, or do you want to see just a little bit of boxing skill mixed in there? Because I didn't see any. I just saw 2 guys it was like a high school fight, and 2 guys going at it. And speaking of high school, my second point, he quit high school to become a pro and signs with PBC and loses for his first fight. You're smack in the middle with youth and boxing and stuff. Would you ever tell a kid? I mean, is there reasons you would tell a kid? I should rephrase it because I know the first answer. But would there be circumstances where you would advise a kid to pursue his professional boxing career over his education?
No, absolutely not. In fact, I just had a similar conversation with a couple kids the other night on our way down to a boxing card in Jersey, where they were talking about, well, if I won, et cetera, and turned pro at this age, and and then I could retire by this time. And I said, well, understand boxing, like every sport, one fight, or one play, whatever, depending on what the sport is, that can end your career. And the money that you have at that point in time, assuming you did make a lot of money, and in boxing it takes a long time before you're on that level. That money's going to go quick, and you always want to have something to fall back on. And I believe came up with something. One of the kids was saying, he liked to cut hair, and I said, you know what, if just something, anything like that you can develop a skill that you can fall back on, and and education is the most important. If kids came over at our gym and we found out that whether or not they were skipping school or their grades had dropped, and that we speak to the parents and tell the kid, listen, man, you got to get this taken care of in school. Worry about that first. So whoever advised this kid to do that, or the people around him, even his promoters and his trainers that aren't sitting there telling this kid, listen, you need to go back to school. That's the most important thing. Boxing's going to be here when you're done. You're only 19 years old. They're not doing this kid any favors. That's horrible. Obviously, he's 19, so his parents can't sit there and force him to go back to school.
No, and
that was a fight. Even worse, Bill. That was the type of fight last night. Guajardo, he doesn't have this really huge amateur background, no Olympic medals or something like that that gives him huge fanfare. And that was quite a brawl last night, and the type that can actually ruin the confidence of a 19-year-old.
Exactly, and now all of a sudden, and we all know the emphasis with an undefeated fighter. The kid is 5-1 now. Now all of a sudden, does he get fed? He didn't display. Listen, it was an action-packed fight while it lasted. There's no question, and I'd be lying if I said I don't love watching that. But he didn't display any kind of skill set. If in the second round, if he would have come out and tried to outbox Collard, which he probably could have. I mean, he had the height advantage, and it seemingly looked to me that he had some type of a jab. I mean, it started in his corner, not giving him the right instruction. I don't know. I feel bad for this kid because, like you said, 19 years old. It doesn't look good. Maybe I hope I'm wrong.
No, I do too. But it's always something. And I was using who did I use as an example? Victor Ortiz, I believe. I was using as an example. One of the kids said, I said, asked you know who Victor Ortiz is? Yeah. I said, he got his. He won a world title. He had some big fights, and then he went back and he actually got an education. He actually graduated, college. So that shows you even fighters realize how important that it is.
Yeah, we got to have something after boxing, right? So
yeah, you have to. Boxing is a young man's sport.
Errol Spence Jr. was supposed
hold on, well, real quick on that card. Did you listen to them announcers when they were talking about, speaking to young kids? Michael Rivera, the kid that fought Fidel Maldonado Jr.
Yeah.
How many times were they calling him the next Tito Trinidad?
It wasn't his nickname something Tito, Little Tito or something. But listen, the announcing, it was terrible. Darrell and Keith Thurman. Ray's a decent guy. He was doing double duty. He was also doing the announcing in the venue too. He was announcing winners and scores and stuff. I love that kid. I've gotten to meet him several times. Over the last several years. He's a hard worker. But
it's a bad luck comparison, Bill. Anytime that anybody's ever been compared to Felix Trinidad, Thomas Delorme, for example, they seem to suffer a bad loss not long after that, and then their careers never gotten back on track. And at least Thomas Delorme is Puerto Rican.
No, at least there was a parallel, right?
Something.
Yeah, Errol Spence Jr., everybody wants to see him back in the ring. Obviously, he had the car accident, and he was scheduled to go before the court for his DWI case, and apparently it's been pushed back all the way to March 9th. Do you think that his team pushed back the legal case so he could fight, or do you think that he's still doing his rehab? I mean, after all, the accident took place in October, and he was banged up pretty bad. What's your thoughts on the legal case being pushed back?
I think that's a mistake. First and foremost, everybody is happy Errol Spence is okay. That's the most important thing, whether or not he was going to fight again at all. But because Errol Spence went out there and did something that was totally foolish, yes, he's young. He made a mistake. It's not the first time we've seen Errol Spence Jr. out in public drunk. We've seen him on the PBC shows. Fans have talked about that, quite a few times. I believe that he needs to take care of his personal life. And I believe, and we've seen this throughout history, Bill, with a lot of fighters, once they gain that fame and some money, when they're able to, whether or not it's a minor offense or it's a major offense, when they're able to push these cases back and somehow make them go away with just a slap on the wrist, not that Errol Spence Jr. Should get any jail time or anything, but, he needs to face that music. If they get this mindset and this mentality that it's okay. Now, Errol Spence Jr., because of the things I mentioned and because of this foolish mistake he made with the accident, he needs every single way possible, whether or not it's the team, whether or not it's the courts, and of course to himself, to say, listen, I got to get back on track, or what's going to happen is I'm going to become an Adrian Broner type.
Yeah, well,
worry about that. Worry about your personal business first. Boxing's going to be here when he gets back.
I'm being asked in the chat room about Tank Davis. He's having some legal issues too, and I wasn't going to mention it, but the truth of the matter is Tank Davis, I loved him. I mean, this was a guy that, to me, showed so much promise. I mean, and then as soon as he got, not even, you can't even say he's at the top of his game yet, but as soon as he got that, in the discussion, he changed. He started hanging around with the wrong people. We've seen many a video clip of him, let's just say, in a very good mood, heading down the wrong path, hanging with Broner, et cetera, et cetera. It's a shame because now he's going to be facing that. He's, he's claiming that the video surfaced of him choking a woman who turns out to be, according to him, the mother of one of his kids and all this stuff. I mean, these guys lose the battles outside the ring quicker than they lose the battles inside the ring. What's your thoughts?
Well, you hit it right on the head. First, the wrong people, hanging out with the wrong people, and the wrong people in his ear. He's only 25 years old. He's been in the public eye now for about 5 years. The people in his ears have done nothing but tell him how great he is, what his future is going to hold. He's made, some decent money. So that's a lot. We see that all the time in boxing. Adrian Broner, who he's continuously being compared to for valid reasons, we've seen that happen with him. Too much too soon. And in boxing, that's why it's important to have the right people around you. It's not just about guiding your career. It's just about helping you adjust and get adjusted to that life in general. When you're up there, you're not just a world champion, but you're a world champion that is placed in the public eye and considered at that very elite. There's a lot of pressure, and sometimes, Bill, and I've heard fighters tell me this themselves, and that, where you're almost expected to perform. There's almost like, two versions. There's the Gervonta Davis, and then there's the Tank Davis. And, Gervonta Davis has to decide which one is he going to be. Is he going to be Gervonta Davis the fighter, or is he going to be Tank Davis the personality? Because Tank Davis the personality isn't working out all too well with him.
No, it's not.
Does that make sense? What I said? Yeah,
no, I
like Broner. You should have stayed Adrian Broner instead of about Billions Broner.
Right. No, I'm with you, and it's a shame because Broner had the skill set too, especially in the lightweight division. One last thing I wanted to ask you, Dax. I was saying today, and one of the topics on today's show is I think boxing made a mistake. It's Super Bowl weekend. It's here in the States. It's, the biggest sports weekend in the United States every year. This is the biggest weekend. I mean, everybody's going to watch a game, whether they're a fan or not. And they may not even watch it. They may be just going to a Super Bowl party for the party. But my point is, why wouldn't boxing have picked last night to showcase a big fight? To try to, everybody is into trying to watch something. People watching basketball games that never watch basketball games, just because it's an event. We get Ugas, but maybe the Fury Wilder rematch or Anthony Joshua Pulev or watching Lomachenko in a fight or Triple G or Daniel Jacobs, any of these big names. What's your thoughts about having them on a Super Bowl Eve night to try to publicize and get some PR out for the sport?
Oh, absolutely. Now, if you just want to kind of, as Bill would say, put on my promoter hat, what you would have wanted to do is, since it's in Atlanta, have a fight card in Atlanta. Get the one of the, the big name from Atlanta, Evander Holyfield down there, or somebody could have had his son who had his pro debut earlier during last year, have him fight on the card and do exactly what you said, capitalize on it, because all those fans visiting from out of town for the Super Bowl, they would have been looking for something to do. I'm sure they would have showed up for that, and then of course you would have had the TV, and absolutely it was a lot of opportunity missed. Or like Coach said in the chat room, saying that card from Miami the other night, that could have been on last night, and that would have been a great segue into tonight.
Yeah, I'm not sure why they picked that on Thursday night. And you make a great point to have it. First of all, the host city that they have the Super Bowl in generally is sold out as soon as they announce where it's going to be, before the teams are even picked. And this year the Super Bowl tickets are outrageously high anyway. But to have it there, for all the people that actually travel to the host city in hopes that they can find a way into the game, or at least pick up the feeling of what's going on in the pubs and bars and stuff like that. You're right. To have a live boxing event on that Saturday night definitely would have drew people. Definitely. It's they made a mistake. They made a mistake. I mean, no disrespect to Ugas Dallas, but in Mississippi, no doubt. Yeah, they made a mistake, but
yeah, absolutely. The other night I was in Hatfield, New Jersey for an event with Jackie Atkins and Newburgh Hook Elite Gym, and we are at a VA hall, and it was sold out, and a lot of the people were speaking about exactly. Matter of fact, the one table by us, next to the ring, the one guy was talking about how he said, boxing tonight, and having some drinks, and goes, and then Sunday the Super Bowl. He goes, this is a great weekend, and my wife's out of town.
Yeah, that was why. That's why he was having such a good time. Do you have a prediction?
That might have been the best, right?
Yeah, right. Do you have a prediction on the Super Bowl before we let you go?
Yeah, I picked the Yankees.
Yeah, the Yankees. I think they have a good shot at winning. I think they do.
I don't watch it.
I know you don't. I know you don't.
I'm going to say the Chiefs.
You like the Chiefs? Okay,
yeah,
all right.
I'm going to say the Chiefs.
It's hard to go against the Chiefs with Mahomes. I mean, he's such an electric player, and I've talked to many people about the game, and everybody's talking Mahomes, and he's got some weapons, and the defense is coming on, and I got an interesting comment from a lifelong Eagles fan. I asked him yesterday, or actually Friday, I said, who you picking? He says, I'm going with the Chiefs because of the coach. And I said, but that's the problem with him. He's choked in these big games. Yeah, when he was with the Eagles and all of that stuff, I said, yeah, but that's the problem. He hasn't won these big games. He sticks to his offensive plan. Maybe he's finally got a quarterback now that can, make those special things happen. It'll be interesting to see, but I'll be watching it for sure. Are you? I'm sure you're watching it at least, right?
No.
I knew. You going to an event? Are you going to at least choke down some chicken wings or what?
No, I'll actually be at the gym.
Oh, there you go. Well, hey, don't be surprised if they have it on the TV while you're there.
If you look at every single one of my social media accounts, they all say the same thing. Unless it has 4, 6, 8, 10, or 12 round distance, I don't care.
You're one of the last ones, Dax. I'll tell you. But listen,
Bill, you've known me over a decade, Bill. I don't care.
No, I know. Even though I've seen you in a Buffalo Bills hat. So that's that. And then you told me, I said, "Oh, you're a Bills fan?" No, I'm borrowing the hat, or one of your relatives gave you the hat, or something.
And
like
that's
that.
what it is. Years ago, I had an uncle that was a big Bills fan, and I was only a teenager, and I had to sit. That's probably why I'll never watch football again. I had to sit through 4 freaking years of that team losing and look at him sulk. Especially when they missed by the field goal that one year. So,
oh God! And they ran Scott Norwood out of town. What are you kidding?
Watching a grown man sit there and cry. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah, well, I do it every year. But
and your team don't even get to the Super Bowl.
I got to see them once. I was 8 years old. But
yeah, that's back when you were in your 30s.
Yeah,
And,
no,
Broadway Joe was playing.
I was 8. But anyway.
38. My
yeah,
God.
yeah. All right, Dax. All right. Listen, you have a good one, my man, and we'll talk next week.
I'll talk to you soon.
All right, that's Dax Khan. Check out his column up on Billy C. Boxing. Dax was being stuff right here. For sure. Get yourself some Kenny Bears. I have been talking about all of their stuff for so many weeks now and years, and I've become I don't know, addicted to the stuff. It's a dangerous word to say these days, but get yourself. This is the 2 new products: the Kenny Bears all-purpose seasoning salt and seasoned salt, and their blackened season, and then of course the barbecue rub that has made them so famous, at least in my opinion. Kenny Bears barbecue rub. I still want to get my hands on Kenny when he was Tinkerbell. They did a commercial with him on Tinkerbell. But just visit southerngourmetspice.com. Get yourself an order and together, and make sure you tell him Billy C sent you. Joining us right now, if you could see him like I do, it looks like he should be one of those paintings, sitting there thinking, pondering what I'm going to ask him. My man Alex Papali joins us. Are you pondering a thought right now?
I am. I was pondering. My cat has been playing. Well, he's sparring. He's got a fake mouse. So if you hear noise during this, it's him. He's in a.
There's one thing I've learned with you, Alex. Always expect the unexpected when you are live, and you never know who's going to walk into the shot or what you guys are going to be doing in the background when the camera's not on you, and now cats and iguanas and all kinds of stuff. But
it's like swimming with sharks.
Yeah,
you never
can tell. But in any event. All right, you're a New Englander, and Thursday night a New Englander fought. I think the last person, they finally woke up in the third row that told him that the fight was over and he had to leave. But Demetrius Andrade, I mean, I'm sorry, man. The guy is he's a boring fighter. And like I was actually giving accolades to Floyd Mayweather, who I always thought was boring too, but at least he showed glimpses and showed us the skill set he possessed. Andre doesn't. He fights cautiously. He doesn't do anything spectacularly, in my opinion, and he's a type of fighter I could care less if I see. What was your thoughts on the fight and the performance and all the negativity I just threw at you?
I think you're absolutely right. I think, unfortunately, that's the thing that we've gotten with Demetrius Andrade, is that he's very skilled. However, he uses those skills to reduce as much risk as he can, which, of course, people might say, well, that's the name of the sport, isn't it? Yeah. However, it doesn't put asses in seats. Risk puts asses in seats. Danger is what people want to watch. Demetrius Andrade is really good at using distance to reduce that level of danger, and he's able to move in and out very, very quickly to score and then get out of range. So it ends up making for a very dull fight, because you've got one guy just sort of reaching and missing, and the other guy pitter-patting, and then, I don't know, to me, I tend to like punchers. I don't like stylists as much. That's sort of my own boxing compass. If you've listened to me for a while, I think that's kind of obvious. That doesn't mean that I think there's no place for them, but I do think that it's a style that, for me, it's a little bit more difficult to watch. Demetrius Andrade is a stylist, and a stylist is somebody who's gets things to happen, not necessarily only from punches. He's using movement. He's more of a thinker, and that's the way to be in the sense of longevity for the sport. Stylists tend to last longer, but you're right. It's a problem when it comes to marketability. Eventually, one of the greatest stylists was Muhammad Ali. There was plenty of times, you would never say about him he didn't take risk. So what I'm saying, it doesn't mean that stylists, are always boring. That's not what I'm saying at all. You've got to find a balance somewhere. And unfortunately, Demetrius Andrade, this is something we've seen a lot. His fights are kind of dull. And that was even the thing that I think you even had him sort of reaching for the first few rounds because he thought he could get him out of there real quick.
And that made it worse because he looked so out of himself trying to do that. And I was saying to myself, he's looking ordinary, like all the skill set you try to say, well, he's boring because, just like you were trying to, give him, make a case for him. But then when he tries to put the pedal down, he looked awkward and out of his skin. It was pathetic. And by the way, no disrespect to Luke Keeler, but it was Luke Keeler. This is a guy that hasn't fought anybody, and it's just a sacrificial lamb, a proverbial punching bag, if you will. That's who he was fighting, and. I can't believe I'm giving as many accolades to Floyd Mayweather, but I thought he was a complete boring fighter. There's no question. But during the 12 rounds of boreness, is that a word? Boreness?
Boredom.
Oh, boredom. Oh, okay. Thank you. You need an English major to correct me every so often. I'm the Slip Mahoney of, half of you probably don't even know who that is. But anyway, during Floyd's 12 rounds of boredom, he would always sprinkle in some excitement in terms of maybe some accurate punching, some hand speed, a display of something that makes you say, oh, yeah, man, if he did that for 12 rounds, man, he would be the best. Demetrius doesn't do any of that. I've never seen him really show me, and don't get me wrong, it's not like I don't think he possesses talent, because I know he does. But he never displays it in the ring, and I think that's hurt him. And like Dax said, in addition to his wrong promotional team choices, this guy's he has to face a tough opponent like a Deverenchenko or a Mugaya or a Charlo. I'd love to see him fight Jamal Charlo. I'd like to see who would come out on top. But you know what I'm saying?
And I think the thing about it is that I think, in order to see a guy like that in a really good fight, you need a guy who's really a pressing punching machine. Maybe a Golovkin, that might bring out a good fight. But again, if Andrade's able to do what he does best, he would sort of drain the excitement out of it, because he would spend much more time using his legs and using distance. That's the big thing about Floyd, is that in some of his best fights, the one I'm thinking of is the Maidana fight, is the first Maidana fight, which I thought was one of the most competitive fights Floyd had as a welterweight. And the thing that I thought was impressive was that he was able to make adjustments and then come on, and I thought, convincingly beat him that first time. It was a 7-5 decision, but that was decisive enough. The thing about it is that Maidana was the kind of guy that he doesn't care if some shots are missing. That's the way you overwhelm a really good counterpuncher. It's the same thing in a war. If you've got one country that has really good missile defenses, and they are able to take out all your missiles before they come in, well, the way you overwhelm it is by sending lots of missiles their way. That's the same thing you do with a counterpuncher like that. If you look at fights like Glenn Coffey Johnson versus Roy Jones Jr., that's exactly what he did. He came out and just threw lots and lots of punches. we've never, at least not that I can think of, have we seen a guy fight Andrade with that style. That might bring out the best of him, because then he'd have to fight more of each round. And I think maybe this is appropriate today because it's a big football day. Remember, boxing is more, they say football's a game of inches. Boxing is more of a game of millimeters. You don't have to be miles away from a guy to make him miss. That was the thing about Floyd in the Maidana fight, is that he stayed close in. And when he was able to get out of the way, he just moved a little bit, like in the old Jake LaMotta way, is you just move with the punch a little, or the way you catch a fastball, is you kind of move your hand. That kind of a defense is a lot more engaging because both guys are in range, punching range, so it's more fun to watch.
Well, that is the definite, and that's where my hang-up with Floyd Mayweather has always been. And when people tell me, how can you say that? He's a great defensive fighter. Well, to me, being a defensive fighter means what you just said, that you are standing in front of your opponent. They can't hit you as much as they try, but you're hitting them, sort of like a guy named Vasily Lomachenko. There's a guy that, he's right in front of you, and you see him. You can almost, you can feel him if he wasn't hitting you, and you can't hit the guy, and that is great. That's the sweet science. But speaking of a great fight, and speaking of a guy who is noted for his sweet science ability, Tevin Farmer, my man, my kid Jojo Diaz. And you heard it. Yeah. Remember, I predicted it last week. I said Jojo Diaz is going to win this fight. I thought the fight was more of a one-sided fight than the scores indicated. I mean, 116-112 or better, I would have. I didn't score it, so I can't. But, after watching the fight, but two of them having it as close as they did, 115-113, I thought was a little suspect. I didn't think Tevin Farmer was making it that close of a fight. I thought that Jojo Diaz was pushing the action, was landing the harder shots. Maybe it was all that blood. It was a vicious cut.
Oh, it was like he had an extra hole.
You should have loved, of all people. I just watched you shiver. That should be nothing to a guy like you, Mr. Horror Guy. Come on.
Well, that's the way I am. I cringe, but then I look again.
Yeah, I couldn't look. Like when they first showed the close.
Play it back.
I'm like, I'm watching on a big screen TV. I'm like, oh my God, that's gross. And I'm saying, oh man, first round, this doesn't look good. And I'm thinking, or maybe it was the second round. I'm like, oh, get it to the fourth round, because I thought he was winning. I mean, easily. I figure, they get done with the fourth round, they go to the scorecards, he wins. But they did a great job on that cut in the corner, because they never even looked at it again. I don't recall.
Yeah, I really think that, and I think Mark Kriegel a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a month ago or something, did a thing on cut men. And I think we really are living in an amazing era for cut men, because we have seen some absolutely ghastly cuts that the fights didn't end over the last few months. And that was another one. It basically had, he had a sunroof in his eyelid. And it was crazy. That was just gross, and I can't understand. This sport impresses me every day. I can't imagine what it must be like to have a wound like that and to keep getting punched on it. Wow. Yeah. Guts.
I tell you, I've always been a big Jojo Diaz fan. I know you're jealous of his hairstyle, because you too wanted that, especially when you saw him in Vegas. But
him and Red Catch.
Yeah, Red Catch too. But I think that Diaz, and this is the bittersweet part of winning a title. Now you got the bullseye on your back, and the one point that goes against what I always say. I always say that I feel that fighters should, learn and become the best they can be, and then get a shot at a title, and then prove that they're the best. what has happened in today's sport is that they get coddled, they get a shot, and then people accept the fact that they're developing while they're a champion. And in Jojo Diaz's case, he has the reason why I picked him last week was because he did fight the tougher opposition, et cetera, but he's not as skilled as Tevin Farmer. With that said, now that he's a champion, and his first fight as a champion may very well be against Tevin Farmer in the rematch, but he needs to tighten up his game. And the one thing I notice about him is that he needs to be a little more accurate with his punches. And I don't know if that's more for Farmer, giving Farmer credit for his defensive skill, or Jojo Diaz, because I have seen Jojo Diaz do the same thing, where he's letting his hands go. He's in phenomenal shape. He can take a punch. He can deliver a punch, but sometimes they're just a little bit off. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's well, and I think maybe some of that might be the opponent. And that's where they go back to the drawing board and take a look at the performance and try to get it better. Yeah, I think you're right. I think depending, in some cases nowadays it's not uncommon to see that where a guy has a title and he's not a complete fighter yet. It's different than it used to be. I mean, you didn't see that in the 60s and 70s. I don't necessarily think it could be spell the end for a guy if he's developed right in terms of, once he has the title, if they pick the right opponents. I think Jojo Diaz is coming along well, and I think that what he accomplished this week, is definitely a great another stage of development. So I think that I think the best is yet to come with him. I think Farmer's the one who is going to have to regroup, and the whole thing with the twitching was weird, but from what I had read on Twitter, I saw that post-fight evaluations were fine. So, I don't want to say that there was medically something that involved him. I thought what Jojo Diaz is what caused him to lose, not something, inside.
I thought I give Joe Diaz more credit for keeping focused when Farmer did his looking up in the sky, twitch or whatever you want to call it. I could see that really screwing up the person you're fighting, So I give Jojo Diaz credit. As far as Tevin Farmer and that issue that he does, he's been safe to this point. I mean, all it takes in this sport is a split. When you're looking up and you're not seeing something coming, I don't know. He's doing it in the corner. It is what it is. But
well, remember Mike Tyson had that weird. He had that sort of neck stretch he developed that was sort of this weird tick, and then it sort of went away. There's a few fights where it started on his walk to the ring. He would do this sort of weird neck thing again and again, and then he'd do it in the corner. I don't know. This is, these guys are getting hit in the head. I guess we shouldn't be too surprised that we're.
Well, the worst, hitch, so to speak. They call it in baseball. They call it hitch in the swing, where it's a timing mechanism that young players can get away with, little league, high school, even as you're getting to the college levels. But when you get to the major leagues, that crick in your swing or hitch in your swing or whatever. That split second that you do that, the ball's past you, and in boxing, the one that bothers me the most is Leo Santa Cruz with the glove. He's spinning the glove, and to me, that's a terrible habit, because if you're doing that and you're ready to throw a punch, it's almost like you're losing time because you can't deliver a punch doing that, But
right. Well, and that's the issue too with headgear. Too, is that very often when you watch a fight, a sparring session, or now the amateurs, I guess the Olympics will be without the headgear. But that's one of the things you notice is the fighters will have their hands up and then they touch they're constantly adjusting their headgear, and it's like that's taking up time. Granted, you're both doing it because the headgear is constantly moving. But you're right. I mean, all those kind of ticks and little weird things. Those in a pro game could spell danger.
You gave me a segue that I just can't go to right now with the headgear, but we're going to go to it in a second. I wanted to get your thoughts on the Ugas fight last night. Not the Ugas fight. We've talked about that to death. And I know you agree about Raymond Guardo, should have stayed in school. But the fight I want you to talk.
That fight was fun, though.
It was fun, but it was fun, okay? Fight of the year. It should be fight of the year. Fight of the year. Fight of the year what? For less than 2 rounds of brutality, which in any other case I would say yeah, except it displayed no skill. A fight of the year has to have skill and that brutality. You know what I mean? And we didn't see anything from either of those two.
And I think it was also dangerous because you could almost have made an argument that it should have been stopped in the first round.
It could have been. It should, and it was looking like it should have been. And then earlier in the second round, same thing. Yeah. That kid was in trouble. But
to me, that whole thing did seem there was a lot of warning signs about that because usually, and Steve Farhood I think talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I forget if it was on Showtime or. It was I forget what it was where Jack Mosley was the trainer. I can't remember what fight that was, but he was talking about father-son duos in boxing and how right now we're living in a time where there's a lot of them and they're working very well. That wasn't always the case. A lot of times they were horrible,
terrible
father-son duos, and that sounds like a case where it might not be very good because for the father to have given the kid the advice to quit school and then and focus just on boxing, that kind of, granted, I'm completely looking from the outside, but that smacks of the dad wanting to live through his son.
Well, the dad probably left school too. And if they both would have stayed in another couple of weeks, they would have learned in school that you don't fight like that.
Right.
that you need to have some skill. But I wanted to ask you about Dion Nicholson. He was the cruiserweight that opened up the card last night. You didn't see it?
No, I didn't see that fight.
Well, check it out.
Okay.
He's a promising cruiserweight, and I love the cruiserweights. All right, going back to when you really laid out a great segue for that to capitalize on. Have you caught the news that they are trying to put together a Riddick Bowe fight, which maybe he should have been wearing headgear? Riddick Bowe possibly going in with Alonzo Butler. Riddick Bowe should not be allowed to fight again. And although his record is impressive, and realistically his last fight was in 2008, but really you got to go back to 1996 in his second disqualification win over Andrew Golota, because he didn't fight after that for 8 years against Marcus Rhodes. So why they would let this guy fight is beyond me. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, that would be awful. I would hate to see that. I think if you think back over Riddick Bowe's career, I even think that remember there was that incident where he had an issue with the mother of his children, and he actually kidnapped her for a period. and like drove across the state with her and one of the kids. And then, then he came back and stuff. And I remember one of the defenses they used, he had joined the Marine Corps for a week. One of the defenses they used in the court was that
he was demented.
That he had brain damage from boxing.
Exactly.
So I don't know how you go from, hey, I had brain damage from boxing to, can you let me box? I would hope nobody does let him box.
I hope so too. And I remember the Hall of Fame weekend. I very rarely go to the Banquet of Champions dinner and stuff because been there, done that. But the last time I've been there and done that, Riddick Bowe happened to have been there with Tommy the Duke Morrison before he passed. And both of those guys got up and they were really trying to put together a fight against each other to save boxing, was the way they were trying to sell it. And it stuck with me because it showed how pathetic it can be as well. And the discussion of this is pathetic. But wait, there's more. Because if you act now, I even have more pathetic potential matchup that is in the news as we speak, Alex P. And you know what it is? Because I know you're dying to see the rematch. Everybody wants it. Yes, I'm talking about Larry Holmes against Jerry Cooney. Larry Holmes at 70, 63, and who's the promoter? Yes, Lou DiBella. And they are talking about this, and they're talking about it for being a fundraiser and, having a playful rematch on the undercard of a major pay-per-view fight, and the guys will wear headgear and have to pass these things. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I mean, first of all, the definition of a playful rematch would turn me away right off the bat. I don't want to see two old guys. Nothing against either one of them. I love Jerry Cooney. All right, he's one of the funniest guys you ever want to meet. But to see him in the ring clowning around with Larry Holmes at 70, and I don't have anything else to say. What's your thoughts?
See, I would love to see that kind of thing.
Oh, my God.
Stoda. Wait. At Canastota, that would be the kind of thing that, if you put that in front of a bunch of boxing fans, like hardcore boxing fans that go to the Hall of Fame, they'd enjoy it. They'd get some laughs. I mean, if we're talking about an exhibition, like you said, with headgear and, if you look at that, you could find on YouTube an old clip of Joe Jeanette sparring with Jack Johnson when they're both in their 60s. They did a little exhibition for buying war bonds. And that kind of thing is awesome. I'd like that nowadays. We never see that. Now, I hope they don't put it on DAZN like they're doing with these YouTube kids, because nobody wants to see that in place of an actual fight. But yeah, I don't think it's not, to me, that's not on the same level at all as Riddick Bowe versus Alonzo Butler. Riddick Bowe versus Alonzo Butler would be criminal. Holmes, Cooney, 2 would be kind of fun because it's very much, tongue in cheek. I'm sure they'd be messing with each other.
I know, but I don't want to watch it. When it comes to boxing, I want to see real fights, and I want to see the two combatants trying their hardest to win the fight. I don't want to see two guys playing around that somebody's got to pay for. And I'll tell you this right now. Jerry Cooney is a comedian. He's a funny guy, all right, outside the ring. Larry Holmes is not. He's not a nice guy. He's not the kind of guy you want to hang around. And Larry Holmes is the kind of guy that would take this very seriously. And if Jerry Cooney was in there, because Jerry Cooney's a kind of guy that likes his cigars. You'll see him at an event, and he'll have his dress clothes on and no socks. That's Jerry Cooney. He's from Long Island. He's a guy. That's Jerry Cooney. Larry Holmes, Larry Holmes is still as competitive as he always was. And, I mean, it is what it is. It's sort of like when Muhammad Ali, and they're both passed now, God rest their souls, but Muhammad Ali lit the torch for the Olympics in Atlanta. And who did they interview? They interviewed Joe Frazier. Hey, Joe, what do you think of Muhammad Ali lighting the thing? And Joe Frazier goes, well, if I was up there, I'd push him right in those flames. I'll tell you that right now. And it's like, damn, come on, Joe. Look at the poor guy. He's like, I'll push him right in. If I had a chance, I'll fight him right now. And it's like, that's like putting those two guys in the ring. Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier at the end of their careers, like at that stage, and, hoping that, somebody's going to playfully play with Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier would be trying to take his head off. I mean, that is what I see with Larry Holmes. I don't care what anybody says,
Well, I tell you, if it was, I thought you were going to say Larry Holmes versus George Foreman, but that's the thing is that we never got to see them fight. And you're right. I think if they were to fight today, they would both try to murder each other. Yeah. And I think in a way, there's something about boxing. Boxing is the most metaphoric sport because it feels like a fight. It's a struggle. And I think that in a way, that's, what life is about is trying to let go of those kind of resentments. It's sort of refreshing to think that after everything Joe and Ali had been through, he still wanted to shove him into the fire.
He did. When I heard him say that, I was like, oof. I guess they never did bury the old.
Some resentments never die.
Yeah, and he's like, he said it right on the air. He's like, I'll push him right in. You
understand that? You're Italian.
Yeah, I do. It's sad, but it's innate, and he's like, what will I do? I'd push him right in that fire. Oh, geez, Joe. Cut to the commercial. But anyway, Alex, we got the Super Bowl weekend, and one of the points that I made today is that I feel boxing really missed an opportunity to put on a big fight last night on Super Bowl Eve. Dax made a great point to have it in the host city. People are just jonesing for any kind of sport. I watched there was a bowling championship on before the fights yesterday, and I actually found myself watching it. Nothing against bowling, but I mean, this guy won, and they're all the fans. He had a big fro, and they're like doing the picking at his fro, and he's wearing this funky outfit, and I mean, trying to make bowling as exciting as you could possibly make it, okay? And my point is the place was sold out. They had it on TV. It's the biggest sports weekend of the year here in the United States, and we get Ugas against Mike Dallas Jr. I think boxing missed it. I think they should have had a big fight, a Triple G fight, or Anthony Joshua against Pulev or something. The rematch with Wilder and Fury. I mean, I can't imagine it, being hit out of the park if they do that on a Super Bowl Eve. What's your thoughts on that idea?
I think it's tough because I didn't think last night's card was that terrible in terms of the fact that it was sort of like an appetizer for Super Bowl weekend. Unfortunately, I don't think.
Wait a minute. I don't think that card was terrible last night. No, I don't, right. and I'm not knocking it, but it wasn't a premier card that could have gotten the audience that we need to watch boxing. That's my point. I maybe the numbers were well, but they should have picked a better announcing team. No.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was one of the issues. But I think the other thing, to me, I thought that was a decent fight for a Super Bowl weekend, only because the Super Bowl takes up so much press and so much fan attention. I don't think if it was a bigger fight, it would have gotten the attention it deserved.
Yeah, but I don't know. If you have a Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder rematch in Atlanta the night before at a venue, and you got millions of people that are going there in hopes that they can find their way to the game or watch it in a bar just around other people that have traveled. I don't know, man. I just think we needed a bigger fight, and no disrespect to Ugas and Dallas, but a bigger main event than that fight. That's all I'm saying. I think it would have helped the sport.
It could have. I mean, because that's the thing about it is that anytime you want to take advantage of the most eyes, and you're right, there potentially Super Bowl weekend there could be more eyes.
That's the point. Yeah, that's the point. Have something good for them to look at, and remember that hey, this sport is fun. Well, they have me. They can always look at me. Something good to look at on a Super Bowl Sunday morning. I mean, they got an aging, balding, fat Italian. I mean, what's wrong with that?
It could be like, look at that mustache.
Yeah, look at that poor guy.
I could see that mustache every Sunday morning.
They could do it. What I hope they say is, look at that guy. I feel sorry. Where can I pay him? Where can I give him a super chat? But hey, with all this Super Bowl talk, before we let you go, what's your official prediction? You're not going to pull a Dax. You are going to watch the game, at least out of the corner of your.
I'm watching. I'm about to start cooking. I'm making me a Beyond Meat vegan patty melt. I'm very excited.
Sounds delicious.
I'll send you a photo.
Yeah. It sounds great, a vegan meal on Super Bowl. I had no wings, no nothing for you. I'll have a celery stick. What's in that dip? Oh, yeah, that sounds good. But anyway, what's
in that dip? Nothing but plant.
Yeah, it's hummus. Oh, perfect. But is that are those really fresh? Are those fresh organic almonds in that dish? Is this nothing mixed?
Yeah.
Would you like some milk in your coffee? Only if it's almond milk.
Only almond milk. As long as it didn't have parents.
Yeah.
I really like that Patrick Mahomes guy. I've actually watched a lot more football this year than I have in many years because a good friend of mine was in a fantasy football league, so we'd sort of root for different players on different days, and so I really enjoyed watching Patrick Mahomes. Rooting for them. For him, for the Kansas City Chiefs, and of course for J-Lo and Shakira.
Yeah, I mean, I was, yeah, that's it. That's coming from an old, balding, fat Italian. Yeah, J-Lo? Yeah, that sounds good, like a good show. Yeah, but they do have some entertainment. I've actually always enjoyed being a disgruntled Jet fan. I don't ever expect seeing my team in the Super Bowl during the rest of my lifetime. I did get to see them once, but I happen to look forward to the commercials. Some of them are very, very funny. They seem to be better. They seemed to have been better years ago. But it is always interesting to see what the companies unveil. And the funny thing is that a lot of those commercials, I remember the commercial, but I have no idea what they're trying to sell. It's like this great creativity, and it's put together, and it's funny, it's this, it's that. It's like, oh yeah, what were they trying to sell? Was that an insurance? Was that an insurance commercial? No, I think it was Doritos. Oh, okay. But
yeah, I mean, I one thing I always like is the movie trailers. I'm going to look that up now and see what movie trailers we're going to see because I haven't heard anything, and I'm not sure there is a big Marvel movie coming out that they'll be trying to sell. I mean, for me, seeing Britney Spears in those Dallas Cowboys pants back 20 years ago, that was one of the greatest moments of my life. So I think Shakira and J-Lo should bury that.
Well, I tell you, J-Lo is just a freak of nature. She's hot. But the best rendition of the Star Spangled Banner that I think I ever recall at a Super Bowl has to be Whitney Houston, when she did it and she was dressed in that white outfit, and it was just great. I mean, she, every time I think of the Super Bowl, I think of her. And for some reason, it's funny how that stuck so much in my mind. But it was one of the best performances I've ever seen, and it's I don't think anybody could ever live up to that. But speaking of movies, I heard that they are the secret got out that there is a commercial that's gonna feature Bill Murray redoing his the groundhog.
Oh, from Caddyshack?
From Caddyshack, yeah.
Wow.
So we'll see. We'll see. Because it is Groundhog Day today, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about the Super Bowl.
Did that rat see its shadow or what this morning?
I don't know. What?
Remember the year it died? He was waiting. They had all the cameras. It was dead in its little house.
Oh,
it was terrible. It was terrible. But so you're picking the Chiefs. That's your official.
Yeah, I'm going with the Chiefs, and I think between J-Lo and Shakira, I like Shakira a little better. You know me; she's a little more political, so I kind of like that. But
wait a minute. You're political?
Just a little.
Oh. Okay.
She's met Evo Morales and stuff. Yeah, she's pretty cool. That Shakira. But I do think that. I hope it's a good game because I think that's one of the things that I really like. I think everybody likes about the Mahomes kid is that he's this offensive dynamo, and the Chiefs do these amazing things offensively. So that'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a good game. Alex, we'll look forward to you next week, my man.
All right, Billy C. Take care.
That's Alex Papali, always giving us his best for sure. And speaking of best, don't forget about Annie Bears. Yeah, and listen, just do yourself a favor. Go visit southerngourmetspice.com and get yourself a bottle today. It's some good stuff for sure. www.southerngourmetspice.com. Make sure you tell them Billy C sent you. All right, I have. It doesn't look like Emily's joining us today. I had an email specifically for Emily, so we'll save it for next week. And speaking of emails, I got one. This one's from my man Coach, and he said, "Well, I'm going to hold off on this email for 1 second, and I want to continue with my thought on boxing missing the boat." On last night. I strongly feel and felt that we should have had a major fight card last night. Now, I agree with Alex. The PBC card was good. It was an entertaining club show type of a card. I mean, let's be real. I know Ugas is a bigger name, and Mike Dallas Jr. has been around. He was a world title challenger. And it was a good main event for that card. It was a good card. I would love to have seen that card any other weekend except Super Bowl weekend. I just feel, and quite honestly, the announcing team with Darrell and Keith Thurman was terrible. I'm sorry, to be so critical, but it was terrible. And the PBC announcing teams are generally terrible. And their fights are generally terrible, although we do get some great matchups occasionally. But last night was a good, well-rounded card. We saw some upsets. We saw some action. We saw some stoppages. We saw my man Bill Clancy yelling at the corner. Taking control as a referee. We also saw Bill Clancy miss a knockdown. I think that knockdown at the end of, I forget what round it was, but Ugas landed a shot, and Mike Dallas's foot went up, and it may or may not have slipped. To me, it was because then he staggered back to his corner. He missed it. It wasn't a slip. Anytime there's a punch, if you're slipping and you get connected and a punch gets connected while you're slipping, it's a knockdown. Sorry, boys and girls. It's a knockdown. If there's a punch involved and you hit the deck, it's a knockdown. If there's no punch involved and the punch doesn't land and you slip and fall, different story. But that punch clearly landed. I just feel that we should have seen a major main event. Tyson Fury Wilder 2, like I keep mentioning, or Pulev challenging Anthony Joshua, or a Lomachenko fight, or a Triple G fight, or a Daniel Jacobs fight. Any of those guys. Any top name fighter should have been fighting last night. One of my goals in this sport, I've been doing this for 16 years, is to expand the sport, is to help, educate people about our sport, and to try and get, more people involved in the sport of boxing. And the only way to do it is to get it out there. Put the events on. The club show, the small club show in hometown USA, used to be the backbone of the sport of boxing. A show like we saw last night, with the exception of maybe the Ugas being there, but for the most part, fights just like we saw was commonplace in small towns across the United States. And what it does is it develops a fan base, a following. It develops rivalries, town against town or state against state. We don't see that as much anymore. And the reason we don't is because it's very hard. The powers that be in the sport of boxing have made it very hard for a promoter to put on a club show level show. The costs of doing a show, especially in certain states like New York or Nevada, are expensive. And, without TV revenue or now streaming revenue or some other kind of infusion of do-re-mi, the fight's not going to happen. And one of the reasons is because we don't have the support of the fan to go buy the ticket. Technology has made it much too comfortable to watch at home. So the club shows are suffering. And what else suffers with the lack of club shows? Development of fighters, development of fan base. This is the issue with the sport of boxing. And boxing made a big mistake last night by not putting on a big show to try to capitalize and capture some of the sports fans that are just dying for any kind of sport on Super Bowl Sunday. All right, we got an email from my man, Coach. He says, hey, Billy C., I'm not sure if you're having a show today as a slight turn from the recent boxing action, despite you being a Jets fan. I write this to grab a nugget or two of your overall vast sports knowledge and ask you who you're picking today and why. And he says, on the boxing football note, I just read a Kansas City report of Chiefs quarterback Pat Mahomes and his fiancee, while out to eat, were not interrupted or bothered for autograph or selfies while they were eating. After which, upon leaving, he and his girl turned and thanked everyone in the restaurant for not disturbing them and quietly left, paying for everyone's meals. I couldn't help but compare that classy move to the constant stories of our sports top stars throwing money around strip clubs. What's your thoughts? I'm going to address this one first. My thoughts is that I give credit, number one, to all the people that were in that restaurant and noticed Patrick Mahomes and his fiancée and respected their time together. They deserve a lot of credit. And obviously, Patrick Mahomes believed the same thing because he picked up the tab for everybody's restaurant. It's a great move by a guy that's going to be a superstar. He's already a superstar, but he's going to continue to be a superstar in the sport of football for a long time. Coach's point is that, meanwhile, you got a guy that's captivating anyone that's watching sports or I should say, on and off the football field, like he displayed at this restaurant. And what does our sport do? Our top guys go to strip clubs and toss dollar bills around. Or our top guys get in front of a mic and say they're going to kill somebody. They know it. They know it. They know they're going to kill somebody in the ring. It attracts a different type of person. And the problem is that you don't end up with support and corporate sponsorships for boxing because it's too risky to associate your product or service next to some flake that's going to tell you that he wants to eat somebody's children, or he wants to kill somebody in the ring, or they're hanging out at strip clubs, or they're getting drunk and smashing their cars up. I mean, all of the stuff that goes along with the sport of boxing that tarnishes it worse than the people who hate it because of what it is, the brutality of it. We need Patrick Mahomes style guys in the sport of boxing. We need it. We need guys that are going to be the good guys of boxing, to show that the sport is not as terrible as it may seem. And the ironic part of it is that most boxers are the most approachable athletes in any sport. In my dealings with sports, and I've dealt directly with football and baseball and boxing, those are the three top sports that I've personally been involved with on a semi-pro or minor league level to professional level on all three, okay? And one of the issues that we have with baseball and football is that the stars sometimes aren't as accessible as they used to be back in the day. Baseball stars, football stars used to hang around, sign autographs, take pictures with fans, etc. Now, it's, screw you type of an attitude. I just signed a $100 million deal. I don't need to hang around with a kid. One of the most touching commercials was the soda commercial when what was it? I think it was Franco Harris. Oh no, Mean Joe Green. It was Mean Joe Green. He gives a kid gives him his soda, and he throws him his jersey. So and it was touching back then because he was a vicious football player, and people could connect. Boxing, the fighters themselves, outside the ring, the most approachable athletes in all major sports. Generally, they'll talk with you, and they love the attention. I wish we had some ambassadors of the sport of boxing like Patrick Mahomes for the NFL. All right, my official prediction for the Super Bowl today. Everybody knows that's listened to this show that I'm a disgruntled Jet fan. I'm a diehard Jet fan. Unfortunately for my kids and my grandkids, I've kind of forced them being Jets fans too, so I apologize to them because I love them all very much. And I apologize because they are going to be subjected to what I've been subjected to my whole life. The one difference is I got to see the Jets win a Super Bowl, which hooked me as a fan. Never thought I'd live the next 50 years of my life, 51 years of my life, never seeing them get to a Super Bowl again. I hope I do get to see them one more time. But with that said, I've always been a 49er fan. John Brody got me. I was into it. Y.A. Tittle before my time was a quarterback for the 49ers before he was a quarterback for the Giants. The Kansas City Chiefs are a great team. Patrick Mahomes, this kid is phenomenal. They got an explosive offense. They could score points. I mean, watching the playoff game a couple weeks ago, they were down 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, something like that. And before the halftime, they take the lead. It was just an amazing turnaround. Their defense is good. There's no question, and they're playing at the best level right now, which is important. The Chiefs, I love the Chiefs. I like their they've been a throwback team in my opinion. One of the AFL teams. Their uniform hasn't changed much. It seems to look like the same guys in those uniforms as when Len Dawson was the quarterback when they played in the Super Bowl, several Super Bowls. They were a dominating team in the AFL, And when they had the Super Bowls and the AFL, NFL played each other, they were there. This is a great team. They have a great coach. They have it all. The 49ers got Garoppolo. He's a fantastic quarterback. He's was tutored by none other than Tom Brady. They have a vicious defense, and they have a lot of talent on the offensive side too. Who's going to win? Well, it's easy to say the Kansas City Chiefs, and there was an individual that the 49ers started out as the favorite in this game, but somebody laid a $550,000 bet on the Chiefs, and it forced Vegas to move the line. When I checked yesterday, the Kansas City Chiefs were the favorites, -2. So for being an underdog, I think they were +3 when the line opened. To be -2 suggests that a lot of people put money on the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think that the reason behind that is because of Patrick Mahomes. At the end of the day, defense wins football games. And the Kansas City defense is not as good as the 49ers defense. And the 49ers defense is better than any team that the Chiefs have played. Because of that, I think that the 49ers defense will keep Patrick Mahomes in check today. I think it's going to be an exciting game. I think it's going to be a somewhat high-scoring game. But at the end of the day, I think that the 49ers offense is going to find the end zone more than the Kansas City Chiefs offense. And it's going to be because the 49ers defense is going to prevent them versus the Chiefs defense stopping Garoppolo. My prediction, San Francisco 49ers will win this game. And they're going to win it by a bigger spread than you might think. My official prediction of score is 38-27, San Francisco 49ers. If you haven't placed your bet, put your money on the 49ers. They're not going to lose today. They were the best team in the NFL quietly all year. And you can make an argument that the Chiefs were the best team in the AFC. I personally think the two best teams in the NFL this year on the NFC side was the 49ers, and on the AFC side was the Baltimore Ravens. But what makes the NFL so great is it's one and done, baby. And the Titans derailed the Ravens, and what has shaken out are the two best teams that were left in the playoffs, and ironically, I believe the best and third best team in the NFL are playing each other in the Super Bowl. It's very rare that happens, boys and girls. A lot of times the hottest team gets into the Super Bowl, not always the best. We are going to see the two best. I'm picking the 49ers. Hey, listen, thanks for stopping by. Make sure you tune in next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, I'll leave you with this. Ciao, baby.